Hello and welcome. It's Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We are here for the Storage Syndicate Spotlight, joined as always by Murph. No hat today. Did you get your haircut this week, Murph? Is that why you're going no hat?
Well, Wayne's coming on. I had to put the polo on and get the hair done today. So
Steve stepping it up for literally a mogul in the self-storage industry. We were just talking off before we came live to Wayne Woolsey, president of Kiwi II Construction. We were talking about trade shows, and this is your 27th self-storage trade show season, which says a little bit about your longevity. For those of you guys who don't know Wayne, aren't familiar with Kiwi II Construction, I don't know how you aren't, but I'm going to just fill you in a little bit of background. He's coming up in the thousands of, nearing the 1,000 mark of self-storage development projects that he's been involved in some capacity or other. Kiwi II is a design build firm, so they can do it all from the first second you're looking at the piece of land. They can help you from start to finish. Really kind of, we know Wayne and where we count on him expressly as legacy developers is his incredible knowledge in the steel space. He's done steel on almost all of our projects, been incredibly helpful to us, especially in the last couple of years as prices in the commodities market have shifted so drastically, really helping us navigate that and be able to keep our costs under control and not allow some of the drastic shifts to affect us too badly. So Wayne's been an integral part of the success of legacy developers. I've been bugging him literally since the first week that I started doing the Storage Syndicate Spotlight in October of 2022 to join us. So grateful. I've seen him at enough trade shows in the last 6 months that I was finally able to bug him enough times to get him to come and join us. So really appreciate you hopping on, Wayne, and really looking forward to picking your brain a little bit.
No problem. Welcome. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me once.
I will literally show the text thread on camera of how many times I sent the Calendly link to have you schedule this before you jumped on. Yeah. We always like to start. You mentioned, as I said off camera, 27 years in this space. Tell me about your start. Obviously, your Kiwi is not a random name. You're a native New Zealander. Take me on the journey of how you even got to the space of doing construction in the self-storage world.
Yeah, just a long story short, back in New Zealand, I had a really good friend. He was working over here for his uncle, and in one of the original storage companies back then was called Ross Construction. And they were sort of, a sister company to a company called Rib Roof. And we all came over here and we all worked in the field building these things for, that dual company, if you will. And we'd put these buildings up and people would say, hey, can I just buy the material from you guys? We love your crews. And so it just sort of evolved like that. Then we started in selling materials, and then we didn't like how things were being designed. So then we added an engineer, and then we added drafting people. And then all of a sudden we needed accounting people. And, 20 something years later, here we are with an office of more than 30 and north of 200 people in the field, and just coast to coast building. Yeah.
I think one of the things that blew us away, our very first project here in Sicklerville, New Jersey, the CubeSmart that's now open, going over there and seeing your crews, man, they drop on site when it's time for the steel. They're there 7 days a week, just working. Like it's unreal to watch. The thing I think of the most is a hive. It's like just watching a hive go to work, and like just to see the transformation. How are you able to keep crews that motivated to work that hard and be able to just, anybody doing something like that 7 days a week, it's a challenge.
Yeah, look, it's being in the field is the toughest thing. You've got to deal with at some point, crews are being out of town. We've tried to do a really good job over time to, sort of put people in geographies where they can get home for the weekends. Back in the day, we'd go on the road for a month and try and get back home, but now it's, we've all grown up, right? We're no longer 20 anymore. People have families, they have kids, and we're respectful of their time, and we incentivize them on the job when they're there, and we also help them get home on the weekend so they can be there for those weekend sports. And so it's a dual thing of, we've got the young guys who are hey, I'll go anywhere. And we certainly utilize that youth, and they'll be in Salt Lake City one job, and then we need to go to Carolina, right? So then we've got the guys that, look, I'll be anywhere in Florida, just let me be there. So my business partner, Brian, he runs the operation side of things, and he controls that. And that's a by minute daily event. It's not, let's plan it this week. It's, you've got so much going on. There's multiple tradespeople on a job. So not only are we juggling jobs, we're juggling the time of working with everyone else on the project. So, schedules are a must. And I guess a long answer, but incentivizing those teams to get in and get out and get to the next one is a huge priority for us.
You opened up a question for me there. You were talking about the other trades and being on job sites, and especially over the last couple of years, we all know at this point, COVID had a pretty big disruptive influence on access to materials. And how do you navigate that and it's not just you having steel to put up, it's the concrete guys and all the other pieces of, thankfully, storage is relatively simple compared to some other types of construction, but you're kind of beholden on a job site to some other people getting their stuff done. How do you manage that juggling act?
There's no real easy answer. We rely on working for, a great team. We've certainly over many years been able to find general contractors and find owner developers that put together a good team. There's always the one or two tough jobs for whatever reason, whether it be they're overloaded, or we're in New Jersey and it snowed for the last 3 weeks, and you can't do things for the weather reasons, right? But being able to really schedule these projects out and be able to have one or two other jobs in that area. So if one's slowing down, we can go to the other one, wait for it to catch up, then we come and give that one a boost. And being able to do that is huge, where, we're not just relying on one job in one area. We'll drive 100, 150 miles to the next job, slow one down because it needs to be, then we can go speed one up, right? So we're heroes over here, but no one misses us over here because the job slowed down anyway. So we spend money like that to help ourselves, help out the job that's going slow, and also boost another one that may not need the boost. But being able to have that ability is huge, and I think people enjoy that we're able to and willing to jump around and not just say, hey, we're here, we're charging X amount a week because we can't work. We're just not built that way. We're not built to stand around. We'll make something work out of nothing.
I was thinking about this question in regards to steel prices, but it really sort of is appropriate relative to what you're talking about, which is, I'll frame the question since I brought it up. Steel prices have fluctuated a ton, right? And when you're on a job, and of course, a lot of times you'll try and lock in the price on the steel before the whole job goes, but you can't always do that, right? Sometimes somebody gets caught in a situation where prices might vary greatly from the time you priced out a job to when they lock in their price. Same thing here with the timelines. How do you navigate that relationship of, obviously the owner, the developer is going to bear a brunt of some problems, but you as a Kiwi II have been a partner. You kind of aren't just holding the developer to the coals. How do you kind of manage that? Hey, I've got my business that I got to keep going, but at the same time recognize the challenges that a developer might be going through as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that has come from just, again, being around for a long time. We've got both relationships upstream and downstream, right? So, we're able to go to our core group of vendors and to say, hey, look, we're rolling out these 6 projects this month. What do we need to do to get materials produced? Where can we sit them? Where can we rent a side yard? What can we do to get them to the job site? Long time ago, we were building, 30, 40,000 square feet on 5 acres. So we had 2.5 acres of just grass land. Now we're building 100,000 square feet on a postage stamp surrounded in power lines. Where are we putting this material? You know what I mean? So, it's certainly evolved over time where, we're able to pick and choose what we send, pick and choose, the vendors on pricing, and deliver on an as needed basis, but also, be open book with our, whoever the client is, whether it's a general contractor or an owner developer, and say, hey, this is what the next month looks like. This is what the next quarter looks like. What can we do? Where are you at from a funding basis? Because we don't want to go and buy $500,000 worth of materials and then we can't draw it on the loan because the bank has these requirements. It needs to be installed to be paid. So every job's its own unicorn. And so that's really something that we have to do up front, is plan ahead, but also plan to what the project allows us to plan, whether it's, like I mentioned, logistics, being able to fund the draws, where do we put the material, and on top of it, do we even want that material because it's the finished product, right? So, siding, we don't want that getting scratched. Framing is durable. We'll ship that all day, every day, and nothing's going to happen to that. So, also we're sensitive to what material we send to the job site because we don't want to replace it because the grading guy ran over it because it was in the way, right? So, it's not just a simple one answer fits all. It's A to Z. How do we put this puzzle together?
I think it's one of the interesting things that jumped out at me when I even before I met you in person, I've heard about you working with Brian Brogan, who's our chief operations officer. Just talking about how you guys are on the phone, once a month, maybe even more than that sometimes, talking about steel futures. How important it is for you to keep the clients, the working relationships that you have, up to date on what's going on, and how's that benefited you over the long haul?
Transparency, just being open and honest and working through it as much as we can. And, we get the CRU index, which is, basically what the steel's doing. We get that every Wednesday morning. And, it's a little bit of that gas station syndrome, right? Where they can run out front and, it was $2 a gallon. Now it's $2.10, and we get that a little bit.
You can tell Wayne's a little older. He still remembers $2 gas.
But it's so we push back and we push forward, and but all we can do is go back to the owners and say, look, hey, we're at $1,200 a ton. We're heading towards $1,220. It's not going to move the needle. Nothing to worry about. All right, now it's dropped back down and everything's good, right? So. We're here middle of June. We're probably going to see a little softening, maybe 4 to 5% into July. So we pay that forward, and that's something that we'll look forward to is the softening. Last year we rounded the corner early, and we were in that $800 a ton range, and overnight it went to $2,000.
I remember very distinctly those conversations in our office.
Yeah, you just can't prepare for that, right? So
fortunately, we have some nice contingencies built into all of our budgets, but you hate to see 100% of your contingency go to one material. I was going to ask you about that. I mean, obviously we've come down a little bit where it's not quite as crazy as it was when it was hitting 2,000 a ton. We've had a lot of pressures in a lot of areas on developers over the last year. And, nobody's crying for us. We're doing all right. And thank God we're in the self-storage game where we are. But you've been in this for a long time. Have you ever seen an environment where material costs rose so starkly? Interest rates, obviously, we haven't seen interest rates this high since the early 90s. And then cap rates have compressed a little bit as well. So the other side of it is coming down. So it's kind of been like everything is working against, the development happening at the same time.
Yeah, look, I would agree. We all came through the 2008 period. This one scar's just still getting better. But that wasn't sort of the same circumstances we are today. We're certainly seeing, just not in my world, but every world, copper, and on the electrical side, the switch gears.
Yeah.
What do you mean you got to order it and we'll see it in 12 months? That's just crazy to me, right? So not only are we having more pressures to pre-order and get things going, the developer now is going, well, if I don't close on this loan, it's going to go up a point and a half. And then on top of that, like you say, there's challenges in rental rates, there's challenges in competition. But look, at the end of the day, I think, everybody I'm talking to and what I'm seeing, to your point about cap rates, you're going to go buy something for a sub 5, you're better off building right now, and getting into the building game, and getting out and controlling your cost, right? Controlling your location, getting something that's brand new versus buying something that's 5-10 years old, and you got to put 200 to 500 of capex into it anyway. So that's going to compress the rate anyway. So, I think if interest rates, which they're looking to slow down here in the next couple of months, I think there's meant to be a report today of some calming. I haven't caught up to that yet, but look, I think it's certainly development is the cycle, not buying. And some of the big guys out there today, how are you competing with them anyway?
It's interesting. The institutional money and when you see Extra Space come in and buy out Life Storage at a 30+% premium over their stock price, you have a hard time throwing that kind of money around. It's interesting because in our office, and you brought this up, I'll kind of give our listeners an insight into it. Every time we start thinking about, hey, maybe the value add in the existing facility market isn't quite such a bloodbath as it was 3-4 years ago, when we really decided to go the ground up development route, because you're right, that's where the most juice was for the squeeze. It's still a bloodbath. Like Austin McLeod, who won't mind me sharing his name, he's a broker for Matthews, sent me a project like last November. And it was a 50% occupancy, and he was listing it at a 4.5 cap against the pro forma on an existing facility, right? So you're basically paying a 4.5 cap on the projected income on a dated facility. And I sent him I actually was kind of rude, and it's why we've since become friends. I was like, dude, can you not send me a 4.5 cap against the pro forma on an existing facility? Well, he had it under contract at that price like 3 days later. And I'm like, it was absolutely insane. It was, ironically, I think you're in Tennessee right now. The site was in Tennessee, in Nashville. And I'll never forget, I was like, hey, I'm an asshole, I guess, for calling you out on this. But you're right. How do you compete in that? And I want to kind of go back to my point I was making earlier, because there might be some people listening that are investors or looking to invest in the self-storage space. Here's the good news. We still have meat on the bone on these, right? Even with all these pressures that are coming, maybe we don't have the juicy cash out refi that we were looking at 3 years ago at CO, but we're still looking at facilities that, we're able to put a $15 million facility up that looks like $23 million of value when the thing's full. And that's kind of that's hard math to be upset at in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, look, I think there's still, and we're seeing it, there's two types of buyer, right? There's the developer, and then there's the investment group. And the investment group doesn't know how to develop, right? But we're seeing more and more of those people come in, because storage is definitely on the map, right? And I think, when you talk to owners, it's a double-edged sword for them, right? They held the hand up for many years and wanted storage to have a representation as a REIT. They did such a great job. Now everybody looks at it. All the reports are out there, and all the Marcus Miller chats, all the reporting, right? Look at storage; it's outperforming everything. Well, now you've got the attention of all these people that are now coming in and wanting to compete against all the original REIT guys, right? And the top 100 owners. So, but those guys need the help of people like us to help them to get into the platform on the development side. They can take their money and go buy a 4-cap. And, well, I think Chase right now has got long-term CDs at 5%.
Right.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
So but certainly there's a lot more interest, and there's a lot more opportunities for both the options that we all live in. It's just, how do we guide them so they don't make the wrong mistakes?
I love the insight that you're giving, and it's certainly a challenge that it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out over the next year, right? Obviously, we just got the numbers from the SSA Almanac back at the beginning of March. I think the average Class A facility traded in 2022 at a 4.6 cap. Most of the realtors, most of the brokers I talked to said that was kind of weighted toward the beginning of the year, and towards the end of the year, those numbers started to decline. They were more in that 5.5 cap. Anyone listening who doesn't understand cap rates, it's just a number to assign the percentage of your cost of purchase that you're going to get back year over year. So if you pay a 4.5 cap to buy it, you're expecting the income from that project to get you 4.5% of your purchase price back yearly. I think one of the things that really is crazy about self-storage, and one of the reasons, we heard about a 2-cap sale in early 2022. It was, somebody paid 50 years of net operating income up front to buy a facility, which is mind-boggling. But you've been in this for a long time. When you look at the growth of income in these facilities, you're talking about 40 years of 8% average annual increase in income. A 4-cap's really not a 4-cap if you're going to see 8% increase in income year over year, right? So that's kind of some of the maybe allure of people paying such crazy money.
Yeah, and I think too, you think about some of those bigger companies like Extra Space, right, and the Life Storage deal. There's so much economy in what they can do from leveraging expenses and everything that goes into a deal. They're going to look at it completely different than the guy buying one facility. It's it's apples and oranges, but you say one of the surprising things for storage for you, one of them for me is, and I look at this just because I want to see what runway is there in my world. Well, I think just now market penetration of storage to user has just breached 11%. So you think about that. You think about, 56,000 facilities, and we're only tapping into 10, 11% of the population.
Wow. That is, I never really thought of it that way.
What does that do if it moved 1%, 2%?
That's 37 million people.
Right. Wow.
So divide that by 1,000 units. How many stores is that? So those are some of the things that, you think about surprising, bits of data that you can go out there and look at. You guys look at, cost to build, cap rate, fees and all that sort of stuff. One of the things I look at is how many people are going to trade shows. What's the percentage of saturation? Is it, there's a town in Southern California called Irvine. Again, we've been building there for 20 years. I don't know how many times I've stood up and said, there's no way we're going to build another storage. We're doing 2 there now, and they're all.
Orange County needs some more self-storage, right?
Yeah, but just, again, what all the drivers, I've tried to look at it, and there's some people out there that are a lot smarter than I am that says, we're going to build one on this corner and that corner, and they fill up, and
it's so interesting you say that. We look at well over 100 sites a week of raw land.
Sure,
and there's just no calculus for it, right? Like we look at markets where there's 17 square foot per capita of existing storage, and the rates are $28, $29 per year per square foot. And then we'll look at another market where there's like 8 or 9 square foot per capita, and their rates are $18 a square foot, where it's less, it's $10 a square foot. So it's really hard to understand in some of these markets how. And you brought up something fascinating, and I'm interested to see over the next 10 years. We're now really starting to see the new construction be these 3-story beautiful looking buildings like, you know, our Q Smart in Sicklerville. It's an attractive building, right? It's not that old school public storage everyone is familiar with that, you know, looked like a closed off castle from the 1500s and was kind of scary and daunting. It looks like a mall almost, like on the exterior. It'll be interesting to see, and I guess I would love to get your thoughts on how does that affect market penetration? Do we see more and more people feeling comfortable putting their stuff in storage because of that appeal of the design?
I kind of think it's all they have available to them. You know, I think people have, you know, just we looked at it 5 years ago when we looked at, especially in the Northeast, you know, out on Long Island, you know, Brooklyn, and we're doing, you know, 2 floors underground and 3 floors above ground, you know, and people are saying there's no way people are going to go inside and go downstairs. Well, once they go in an elevator, does it matter if they press 1 up or 1 down? People
no idea where
it now, right? You know, and
yep.
And you know, the brightness and how vibrant these buildings are that are being built with all the fancy LED lighting, and how it comes on all sensor driven, and it's not you walk in and you turn the old dial and 10 feet of light comes on. You walk in and 200 feet of light comes on. So giving that renter the feeling of safety. Yeah, this multi-story buildings, and you've got 2 drivers. You've got architects that are really designing these things so the cities like them, so they get approved. That's the big driver. And then the cities want them to look good because they're coming in to towns where, you know, they want modern facilities. They don't want the roll-up doors. They don't want that vision. They want it to look like the building across the street that Google has. So, you know, it's more and more modern, more and more glass. We're fighting Title 24. We're fighting all these things for all the technology that's coming in. We're fighting it to make it so that they're efficient buildings. But it's coming hot and heavy. Yeah.
You brought up Title 24, which I haven't heard before. So I'm going to just ask you to explain what that is. And
it's basically, it's how you insulate the buildings. It's to do with sun penetration, efficiency of mechanical units, and all of that sort of stuff. So it's a driver that, you know, the cities look at, and it's follow the code. Yep.
Got it. Perfect. I learned something new tonight, which I knew I would when I had you come on. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I was going to ask you, we were in New Orleans back in March for the SSA Spring Convention. At that point, it looked like steel prices might do another little spike going into the summer. And I guess that really hasn't come to fruition. And now looking like maybe we might even get a little bit of relief.
Yeah, look, they tried. And I think they tried because they could see demand tapering off for them, the big mills, you know, and when the demand tapered off, you know, they tried to spike pricing a little bit, you know, try and squeeze the juice out of it, like per your thing before. But it's trending down slowly.
Are you seeing less projects going? You know, I guess I'll preface this by an interesting stat that came out with the 4.6 cap rate trade last year. Less storage came online last year than population increased. So we actually went from nationally 6.2 square feet per person in the country to 6.1, which I thought was fascinating because everyone in the industry seems to think we're growing too fast and there's too much new facilities coming on board, but the actual amount per person went down. So I guess you're in a unique position to kind of understand. Are you seeing development slow down? Are you seeing less people look to put things up, or are you staying just as busy as you have been really since, I guess, 13, 14, 15, as the economy really started hitting its stride again after 08?
Yeah, I would say the last couple of years have been pretty, you know, level, maybe a little tick here and here. But I would say in the last quarter, we've certainly seen a little bit more hesitancy from just really people trying to work out what interest rates are doing, what construction costs are doing. We're seeing the same volume of projects come through the door. Tell me what it's going to cost. How quickly can we get plans done? A lot of people are prepping, no different than sort of 07, 08, right? Where people were afraid of the next step, but so many people still jumped in to do it because they knew they were going to do it. So let's go through the process, build when it's a little bit, cheaper to build, because it's a 3 to 4 year process for most of these projects anyway. So, if you're deciding here middle of June 2023 to build a project, when is it really going to be open? So are you worried about the next 6 months, or are you going to build through the next 12 to 14 and then be ready for that cycle, say early 25 rent season?
Yeah, I think that you bring up such an interesting point because, we're dealing with it as especially, my role at Shovel Ready Storage is to sell off development deals to other developers. And you were at our storage syndicate mastermind in New Orleans with a lot of new developers. And, in 2021, 2022, when we were looking at 5.5% construction loans and refining with a bank at, 4%, you could pro forma to a cash out refi on any half decent deal. That's kind of a much harder thing to do when you're talking about 9.5% construction loans and 6.5% refi loans at a 1.25 debt service coverage ratio. It's getting really hard to go into a project today expecting to be able to cash out refi a project. On the flip side, as I said earlier, you're kind of looking at, okay, are you going to be upset that you built the thing and you got to go sell it to a Wall Street money at an $8 million profit? Is that going to be upsetting? But to your question, why I'm kind of giving, I know it's a long question. How do you really project? Like, we don't know what interest rates are going to be 4 or 5 years from now when this thing stabilizes. So it's kind of like, yeah, we can all guess and we can all, say, hey, this doesn't look great on paper to a refi right now. You've been around long enough to kind of see these cycles a little bit. How do you project that out, and how do you protect your downside risk?
Yeah, look, I'm not sure how the owners do it, right? For us, we're protecting a process that's 6 to 8 months long and buying materials, and that's what we're doing. You project out what interest rates are doing, but why don't you project out what street rates are doing? Do you truly know if you're building on Main and Main that in 6 months someone else isn't going to break ground beside you? You know what I mean? So the risks are everywhere. They're everywhere. Point. Yeah.
I literally had that conversation late last week about, that sometimes something looks really good on paper. But, it looks great on paper because you're projecting rates at $30 a square foot because there's nothing else that's showing up in the pipeline. Yeah. But you're in a market in a 3-mile radius with 30,000 people in it. If one other person puts a site up 2 miles down the road from you, you could be looking at $18 a square foot rates very, very quickly. And all of a sudden, what looks really good on paper isn't. And, I guess that's sort of the inherent risk as developers and what you kind of take. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit just because you've been around the cycle. You've seen it so many times, the up and down, obviously having gone, previous to 2001 and then through 08. How have you kind of seen these cycles, these kind of dips in the market play out over time? What's your experience? Do you expect this to kind of go away and 4 or 5 years from now, it's kind of a distant memory? What would be your projection based on your history in the storage industry?
Yeah, look, if I was going to throw an opinion at the wall, I would say this cycle we're in now is going to be very short. I get the feeling from the people I'm talking to is, look, everyone's confident, right? And everybody sees, that this is interest rates have now pretty much stalled. Everyone's been holding off, but everybody that's been holding off has been saying, give me 6 months, give me 8 months, and we're jumping back into this. Where back in the previous cycle, I've got no idea when I'm going to build. I can't answer any questions for you. So, it's completely different. And I think everybody's just biding their time, still going through the permit process, still spending permit money, still getting their bids ready, get everything teed up, and they've got their finger on the green light button, and that gives me confidence that, again, I think this is a short run, a short stall, and I think by maybe mid-3, if not fourth quarter, we'll be back in stride. We won't be running, but and then we'll turn the corner, and I think there'll be more confidence. Yeah.
I want to be happy that you say that. I happen to agree with you very strongly. I'm sort of a little upset only because we're kind of hoping everyone stays stalled for a while. We're a foot on the gas pedal, like our take on it is, hey, if less people put stuff up right now, it's only that much better in 3-4 years when all of our stuff comes online and there isn't a ton of competition in the marketplace. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be that much of a stall. I think you hit the nail on the head. There might be some people, waiting a couple months, but I don't talk to near as many people as you, but I do talk to a significant number of developers on a pretty regular basis. And I think you said a word that I think is pretty important here, which is confidence, right?
Yeah.
You're not seeing panic. You're not seeing people get scared. And I think, panic is when things start to turn sideways, right? When everyone starts to get panicky, you start seeing things go south pretty quickly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Again, a lot of the people we're dealing with are really, they're trying to build also in areas that have, large barriers to entry. And it's taking some people with some horsepower to get these projects across the finish line with the planning department or getting the building permit or fighting with fire department, right? So, that also, I think, is its own challenges, and it hinders other people coming into the market, the newer developer, right? So, those are some of the things that give me a little bit more confidence that we're seeing people building that this is not their first one.
Yeah.
We also have those clients, and we enjoy those clients because that's part of the process I enjoy is taking someone from, hey, I've got this napkin, how do I make it reality? I enjoy that process just as much as I enjoy, all right, come on, Brian, this is our 10th one together. We know what we're doing here. Can I just let's get it done here, and that process is great too. So, this is a great industry. I enjoy the process, I guess is what I'm saying.
That was going to be my next question, actually. You've been at self-storage pretty much your whole working career. What is it about this particular, and maybe you're the wrong person to ask because you don't have a whole lot of experience in other industries, but what is it about this space that you so enjoy and has kept you here for so long?
I would say I enjoy the people. So many people that we build for, I call up sometimes just to see how their weekends were. We've created so many friendships over time, and all these trade shows we go to, and the people we hang out with, both in the vendor world and in the building world. The customers that you think about some of the people I've built for 20 something years. I know their children. I've been to their houses, and I talk to people outside the world, and they go, what do you mean you've gone to one of your clients' houses? I just think it's the people. I really do.
I think that's, I come from a very different aspect of you. August will be 2 years for me in the self-storage industry. I turned 50 in September. So, I've spent the vast majority of my adult life. And this is probably, I think, my 5th or 6th career. So I've been in a few different industries, and I've been to a few trade shows before getting into self-storage. I'm going to tell you, it is the thing that jumps out the most. That Steve and I were out at ISS and saw you out in Vegas, back in April. It is just a different atmosphere when you go. And I don't know what to attribute it to. I like to think maybe it's because of the financial success of the sector. That might be a little bit of it, that, people tend to do pretty well if they're in self-storage. But people are just friendly. I talk to people. We had Alex Burnham on. Alex Burnham from Storage Mart, the $8 billion privately held company. He's got no reason to talk to me. None. But he comes on and he's a guest on our show and is nothing but kind to me and literally leaves like, hey, if you ever need anything, call me up. It is such an odd outlier as far as an industry goes, and really shocking for someone who comes from have been in some other places that are not like that at all. My first career was in television, which is about the exact antithesis of what self-storage is. It was about it. People would just as soon stab you in the back as invite you over to their house. So kind of a neat thing to fall into.
Look, all the trade shows we've been to, and I think the sharing of data is huge, right? And the Burnhams, right? They're a big company, and they want you to be successful so that their business is successful. They don't want, especially in some of these towns, if storage gets a bad name or a bad rap, or there's things going on, injury, whatever it is, it affects everybody. And I think the storage owners there's one thing that they've had unity on is, let's share the data so everybody's successful, so I'm successful. It's never been, hey, this is my business, stay away, and that's the reason the Burnhams and the folks like them will get up on these trade shows and speak at a platform or get on this sort of syndicate program and tell everybody what's going on, so that it's success for everybody. And that's part of the transparency that we all learn. And I think it's just success all around.
I think we talk a lot in the storage syndicate about a growth mindset and an abundance mindset, right? Believing that there's success out there for everyone. And, I grew up with some limiting beliefs, right? My dad grew up on a 40-acre potato farm and grew up really dirt poor and was always worried about the idea of there's not enough money. And those are hard mental habits sometimes to break. It's so interesting to see in the self-storage space that people really don't think that way. Extra Space is not scared of Life Storage, and Life Storage is not scared of CubeSmart. CubeSmart's not scared of it. Those are publicly traded companies. That's a very oddity. They're not scared of the privately held store space. A lot of the other people that we work with, it's very gratifying to see that a whole industry can have that kind of camaraderie and that kind of synthesis between people working together.
Yeah, well, and similar to my business, right? I worry about what's in my box. If I'm doing my box right, it'll help me. I've got other people out there that do what we do, and I'm not running around trying to find out what they're doing. I think as long as I'm doing what I'm doing right, and I'm serving the people that we have as friends and customers, that's the same as what the owners of these storages do. You think about Extra Space. I've talked to some of those guys over there. They have to fill, and he used this analogy to me, and it just blew my mind. They fill a stadium of 80,000 people every month. That's how many people move out and move in of their 2,500 facilities. You think about that job.
Insane.
That's busy enough on their own, let alone worrying about what, like to your point, about the Publix and all those other guys, right? So we all focus on what we do. If we all do our own jobs good, then everybody succeeds, right?
Love that, Wayne. Listen, for you guys listening, if you're watching live or if you're watching this is on Facebook and it's on LinkedIn, and it'll live here forever. So if you're watching this, I could not more highly recommend Wayne from our personal experience working with him, from the hundreds of people that I talk to in the industry that have worked with him. So if you're doing anything in the development space and self-storage, whether it's expansion to one of your existing facilities, reach out to this guy. Our guy behind the scenes, Eric, has put in his LinkedIn and his website up nonstop in the crawl. Reach out to me if you didn't get that, and I'll certainly connect you with Wayne. Again, want to finish up just by saying thank you so much for coming and spending the 45 minutes. I told you before we went on that it was going to go by quick. I got 15 more questions that I could ask very easily, but I promised you I'd honor your time. We'll have to do this again sometime. Can't thank you enough for bringing the insight.
Yeah, I
appreciate it. And
I have written down.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Wayne, have a great one.
Awesome.
We are back next Wednesday night, 7 o'clock for the Storage Syndicate Spotlight. Appreciate you guys all for watching, and we'll see you next week.
All right. See you guys.
Thank you, Wayne.